On October 23, 1854, a concealed British powder mill suddenly detonated under a highly precise Russian artillery bombardment. The mill was buried deep within the British expeditionary camp at Balaclava, surrounded by thousands of troops and supply lines. Its location was highly classified. The structure was fully concealed from the sight lines of Russian scouts positioned around the perimeter of the siege. The British commander, Lord Raglan, quickly realized his enemy had not mapped this target using battlefield reconnaissance or embedded saboteurs. The accuracy of the strike came from elsewhere. The intelligence that guided the Russian artillery did not originate in the trenches of the Crimea. It was gathered, printed, and distributed by a trusted civilian institution in London. During the 19th century, the Times newspaper held absolute authority. It possessed the largest circulation in Europe and an unparalleled reputation worldwide for factual truthfulness. When the British military sailed for the Crimea, the Times sent W.H. Russell. He embedded directly with the expeditionary force as a special correspondent. Russell immediately witnessed failing support services and extreme logistical incompetence. He began filing dispatches detailing exactly how poorly the military leadership was managing the campaign. He pursued these facts out of a sense of duty to his employers and the British public. To the military command, however, operational secrecy dictated the survival of the army. By rigorously documenting the failures of the British supply chain and command structure, Russell created a pipeline of raw military intelligence flowing straight to the adversary. The artillery strike at Balaclava began with the morning edition. On October 23rd, the Times printed an article describing the precise coordinates of British regiments and the location of the hidden powder mill. Details published in London raced across Europe by telegraph network, easily outpacing the physical ships supplying the British Army by sea. The evidence suggests copies of the newspaper actually reached the Russians besieged in Sebastopol before those same editions made it to the British camp. The flow of reporting was so reliable that the Russian Tsar openly boasted of his new advantage. "We have no need of spies, we have the Times." Without paying a single agent or launching a reconnaissance patrol, the Russian Empire used the British Free Press to map its targets in real time. Lord Raglan realized he was fighting a two-front war, against the Russian military in the mud and against the English press in print. Furious, he wrote to the Duke of Newcastle, the Secretary of State for War in London. Raglan demanded that the government intervene and control the reporters. The peril escalated when the newspaper printed an analysis of the British Army's thinly defended eastern flank. They had published an open invitation for a Russian assault. Newcastle responded by securing a vague promise from the editor of the Times to be more careful. He refused to institute censorship or stop the dispatches. Newcastle's decision was a political calculation. As long as the press directed its hostility at the military commanders, the government in London avoided the blame for the mismanagement of the war. In the camps, morale plummeted. Ordinary soldiers reading the dispatches felt abandoned, convinced that their own national newspaper wanted to see them beaten. For Lord Raglan, the pressure was suffocating. He was tasked with maintaining a fighting force, while his opponent possessed complete, daily knowledge of his troop numbers, equipment, and condition. Raglan wrote in desperation, "The paid agent of the Emperor of Russia could not serve his master better." Historians point to this relentless exposure as the pressure that finally broke his nerve and hastened his death. In a later, more cynical era, an enemy command might have suspected such blatant public disclosures were a trap, but the evidence shows that in the 19th century, a printed article in the Times was accepted by the Russians as absolute, guaranteed fact. The uncompromising pursuit of the truth dismantled the expeditionary force's leadership from within, proving deadlier to command stability than enemy artillery. The events in the Crimea established a completely new entity in global conflict, the professional war correspondent. Russell's dispatches altered the dynamic between the battlefield and the home front, embedding the idea that civilian oversight should hold authority over military autonomy. Exposing government failure saved lives by forcing eventual logistical reforms. Yet broadcasting operational vulnerabilities to a hostile power exacted a severe, immediate toll in blood. The Crimean War forces us to weigh the public demand for transparency against the basic security required to survive a conflict. When a nation goes to war, who is the greater threat to an army? An incompetent general or a journalist armed with the truth?